The old shop stood at the edge of town, a relic of a bygone era. Its once vibrant facade now faded and chipped. It seemed to whisper tales of the past to anyone who dared to listen. It was a place of shadows, even in the midday sun. The light seemed to shy away from its walls, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the wind. Dust caked the windows, blurring the light and obscuring the view inside. It was as if the shop itself wanted to keep its secrets hidden from prying eyes. Inside, shelves overflowed with forgotten toys, each one a silent witness to countless childhood memories. Dolls with cracked porcelain faces, toy soldiers with chipped paint, and board games with missing pieces. A rocking horse stood frozen mid-gallop, its wooden body worn smooth by the hands of children long grown. It seemed to yearn for the days when it was a beloved companion. A faded teddy bear lay slumped against a stack of board games, its fur matted and eyes dull. Once a source of comfort, it now seemed to mourn its lost purpose. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of mildew and time. Each breath felt like inhaling the past, a mixture of nostalgia and melancholy. It felt like the kind of place where secrets whispered, where the walls held memories of laughter and tears, of joy and sorrow. A shiver ran down my spine as I stepped inside, the weight of history pressing down on me. It was as if the shop itself was alive, watching and waiting. The floorboards creaked under my feet, each step echoing through the stillness. It was a sound that seemed to resonate with the very soul of the shop. Each sound echoed in the stillness, amplifying the sense of isolation. It was as if the shop was a world unto itself, separate from the bustling town outside. The toys seemed to watch me with glassy eyes, their stares unblinking and eternal. They were guardians of the past, silent sentinels of forgotten dreams. Their painted smiles felt more like grimaces, as if they were trapped in a perpetual state of unease. It was a haunting reminder of the passage of time. This shop held something unsettling, a darkness that lingered just beneath the surface. It was a place where the past refused to let go, clinging to every corner and crevice. A darkness lingered beneath its charming facade, a sense of foreboding that was impossible to ignore. It was a place that drew you in, yet made you want to leave. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched, observed by unseen eyes. It was a sensation that sent chills down my spine, making me question my own senses. The silence was broken only by the ticking of an unseen clock, a rhythmic reminder of the passage of time. Each tick seemed to echo through the shop, a heartbeat in the stillness. Each tick seemed to draw me deeper into the shop's embrace, deeper into its mystery. It was a place that held you captive, a labyrinth of memories and forgotten dreams.
Mommy, can I have her?
Lily skipped ahead, her eyes bright with excitement. At 8 years old, she saw only magic, not menace, in the dusty toys. Her mother, Sarah, trailed behind, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. She wished they hadn't stopped in this town, wished they hadn't stumbled upon this place. Lily stopped before a display case, her reflection swallowed by the darkness within. Inside, nestled in yellowed lace, sat a porcelain doll. Its eyes, two blue orbs, seemed to bore into Lily's soul. They held a strange intensity, a life that sent chills down Sarah's spine.
Mommy, can I have her?
Lily's voice was filled with a longing that Sarah found unsettling. It was as if the doll itself had called out to her. Sarah hesitated. She wanted to say no, to pull Lily away from the doll's captivating gaze. But Lily's pleas grew more insistent, fueled by a desire Sarah couldn't understand. Finally, against her better judgment, Sarah relented. The doll, which Lily named Emily, sat perched on her bed. It was a gift from her grandmother, a relic from a bygone era. The doll's porcelain face was delicate, with painted features that seemed almost lifelike. Its blue eyes, framed by long lashes, were strikingly vivid, giving it an uncanny presence in the room. Its blue eyes seemed to follow Sarah around the room. No matter where she stood, those eyes were always on her, watching her every move. It was as if the doll had a mind of its own, a silent observer in the corner of the room. They glittered in the shadows, watching, waiting. The way the light caught them, it was almost as if they were alive, reflecting a hidden intelligence. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was more than just a toy. Sarah tried to shake off the feeling of unease that clung to her. She told herself it was just her imagination, that she was being silly, but the feeling persisted, a constant, nagging presence in the back of her mind. It was just a doll, she told herself, a harmless, inanimate object. But her words felt empty, lacking conviction. Deep down, she knew there was something off about Emily, but her words rang hollow in the silence of the house. The quiet was oppressive, filled with an unspoken tension. Every creak and groan of the old house seemed amplified, adding to her growing sense of dread. At night, the whispers started. They were faint at first, barely audible over the sound of the wind. But as the nights went on, they grew louder, more distinct. It was as if the house itself was trying to communicate with her. Soft murmurs that seemed to emanate from Lily's room. Sarah would stand outside the door, straining to hear. The whispers were unintelligible, a jumble of sounds that sent chills down her spine. Sarah would find Lily talking to the doll, her voice hushed and secretive. It was as if they were sharing secrets, conspiracies that Sarah was not privy to. The sight of her daughter in such intimate conversation with the doll was unsettling. When asked what she was saying, Lily would just smile and hug Emily tighter. Her responses were always vague, evasive. "Just talking," she would say, her eyes twinkling with a secret she refused to share. One evening, Sarah could bear it no more. The whispers, the unease, the feeling of being watched, it was all too much. She decided to confront Lily, to get to the bottom of whatever was happening. She entered Lily's room, determined to confront her daughter. The room was dimly lit, casting long shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, but the words died in her throat. She stood there, frozen, unable to speak. The sight before her was both eerie and unsettling. Lily was fast asleep, her arms wrapped tightly around Emily. The doll's head was nestled against her chest, its eyes closed as if it too was sleeping. But Emily's head had turned. It now faced Sarah, its blue eyes gleaming with an eerie knowing. It was as if the doll was aware of her presence, watching her with a silent, unsettling gaze. It now faced Sarah, its blue eyes gleaming with an eerie knowing. The intensity of its gaze was unnerving, as if it were challenging her, daring her to make a move. The hair on Sarah's arms prickled with fear. She could feel the goosebumps rising, a physical manifestation of her terror. The room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with an unspoken menace. She backed away slowly, never taking her eyes off the doll. Every instinct told her to run, to get as far away from that room as possible, but she couldn't look away, couldn't break the doll's hypnotic gaze. As she closed the door, she could have sworn she heard a soft, chilling giggle. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it sent a shiver down her spine. The sound lingered in her mind, a haunting reminder of the doll's presence. S5. The house seemed to hold its breath, the silence heavy and oppressive. Sarah knew that this was just the beginning, that the whispers and shadows would continue to haunt her. The doll, with its eerie, knowing eyes, had become a part of their lives, a silent, unsettling presence that would not be easily dismissed. Lily changed. Her once sunny disposition turned dark.
Her laughter was replaced by an unsettling silence.
She spent hours talking to Emily, her whispers echoing in the empty house. Sarah tried to engage her daughter, to draw her back from the doll's sinister influence, but Lily would just stare at her with cold, empty eyes.
One day, Sarah found Lily standing over a dead bird in the garden. Its tiny neck was twisted at an unnatural angle. Lily's face was expressionless, her eyes fixated on the lifeless creature. In her hand, she clutched Emily. "Lily, what happened?" Sarah gasped, her voice trembling with horror.
Lily slowly turned to face her, a chilling smile spreading across her lips. Emily didn't like the bird, she said simply, her voice devoid of emotion.
Sarah felt a wave of terror wash over her. She knew then that something was terribly wrong. The doll had a hold on Lily, twisting her innocent heart into something dark and cruel. Desperation clawed at Sarah. She could feel it in every fibre of her being, a gnawing, relentless fear that seemed to tighten its grip with every passing second. The doll had to go. It was the only way to save her daughter, Lily, from its sinister influence. The doll, Emily, had been a source of joy at first, but now it was a harbinger of dread. She had to get rid of the doll. It was no longer just a toy. It had become a malevolent presence in their lives. Sarah's mind raced as she thought of the countless nights Lily had spent whispering to Emily, the way her daughter's eyes had started to lose their sparkle, replaced by a cold, distant stare, had to break its hold on Lily. The doll's grip on her daughter was tightening, and Sarah could see the changes in Lily's behaviour. She was becoming more withdrawn, more secretive. The once vibrant child was now a shadow of her former self, and Sarah knew she had to act fast. She bundled Lily into the car, ignoring her daughter's protests and the way Emily's eyes seemed to bore into her back. The doll's gaze was unnerving, almost as if it were aware of Sarah's intentions. Lily clutched Emily tightly, her small hands gripping the doll with a possessiveness that sent chills down Sarah's spine. They drove back to the town, back to the dusty shop, the shop where it all began. Sarah remembered the day they had found Emily, sitting on a shelf, looking innocent and inviting. How could she have known that the doll would bring such darkness into their lives? But as they approached the familiar street, Sarah's blood ran cold. The shop was gone. The place that had once housed the doll was now an empty void, as if it had never existed. Panic surged through her veins as she scanned the area, hoping she was mistaken. Where the shop once stood, there was only an empty lot. The building had vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but an eerie silence. It was as if the shop had been erased from existence, taking with it any hope Sarah had of returning the doll. Weeds sprouted from cracks in the pavement. The lot looked abandoned, forgotten by time. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the enormity of the situation. The doll had led them here, to this desolate place, and now there was no turning back. A single, faded, for sale sign leaned precariously against a rusty fence. The sign was a stark reminder of the shop's disappearance, a symbol of the hopelessness that now enveloped Sarah. She felt a wave of despair wash over her as she tried to make sense of what had happened. Sarah slammed on the brakes, her heart pounding in her chest. The sudden stop jolted Lily, but the child remained eerily calm, her eyes still fixed on the doll. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to figure out what to do next. The shop was gone, but the doll remained, its presence more menacing than ever. It was as if the shop had never existed. The lot was barren, devoid of any signs that a building had once stood there. Sarah felt a growing sense of dread as she realized that the doll had led them into a trap, a place where they were completely isolated, as if it had been swallowed whole by the earth. The ground where the shop had stood was now just a patch of overgrown weeds and cracked pavement. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to comprehend the situation. The doll had brought them here for a reason, and she feared what that reason might be. Lily sat beside her, unmoving. The child's stillness was unnerving, a stark contrast to the lively girl she once was. Sarah's heart ached as she looked at her daughter, knowing that the doll had taken something precious from her. Her eyes, cold and lifeless, stared straight ahead. The spark that once lit up Lily's eyes was gone, replaced by a vacant, almost haunted look. Sarah felt a pang of guilt, wondering if she could have done something differently to protect her daughter. In her lap, Emily's porcelain face seemed to glow with an eerie satisfaction. The doll's expression was one of triumph, as if it knew it had won. Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, feeling the weight of the doll's malevolent presence. Sarah realized with a growing sense of dread that they were trapped. The doll had orchestrated this, leading them to a place where there was no escape. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks, and she felt a wave of helplessness wash over her. There would be no escaping Emily's grasp. The doll had them right where it wanted, and Sarah knew that their lives would never be the same. The sense of finality was overwhelming, and she struggled to find a way out of the nightmare they were trapped in. The doll had chosen them. It had marked them as its own, and there was no escaping its sinister influence. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to think of a way to break free, but the doll's hold was too strong, and it wasn't finished with them yet. The doll's presence loomed large, a constant reminder of the darkness that had entered their lives. Sarah knew that the battle was far from over, and she steeled herself for the fight ahead, determined to protect her daughter at all costs.